Now we can go to New Delhi to speak to retired Commodore Chitrapu Uday Bhaskar, Director at the Society for Policy Studies in New Delhi. Thank you so much for joining me. Okay, India has said this is retaliation for the attack in Indian-administered Kashmir a few weeks ago. What message do these attacks now send to Pakistan?
India had a very clear message to convey after the terror attack of April 22 in Pahalgam, which is to say that the perpetrators would be punished and those who have enabled and supported such terror attacks against India would also be dealt with in a very firm and resolute manner. Along with this, Indian intelligence agencies had also picked up information which indicated that there were plans for another strike against India. So this particular operation, which has been called Operation Sindoor, was a combination of political resolve that terror attacks would be punished and that the perpetrators would also be identified, and concurrently a message of restraint saying that India did not wish to escalate this, which is why they made it very clear that no military assets were targeted and that the 9 locations were all linked with the terror infrastructure that has been nurtured in Pakistan over the last 2 or 3 decades. So that was the limited message that India was conveying.
So earlier I was speaking to the former Information Minister of Baluchistan in Pakistan, and he was saying to me the actions that were taken by India with these latest strikes was a clear act of war. Now, would you agree with that statement?
I would not agree with that. This is not an act of war. This is a response to a very brutal terror attack. Just to recall very briefly, on April 22nd, 26 innocent tourists were gunned down when they were on a holiday, and many of them were asked to identify what their religion was. And if the answer was not acceptable to the people wielding the gun, they were killed. There was nothing more brutal. So for India, a response was inevitable. And the target was not Pakistan. It was not the people of Pakistan. It was the perpetrators, the terrorists, and their handlers. So to that extent, I would say this was not a war, but a counter-terror operation with a limited objective. And which is why, along with the military strike, there was a political diplomatic message that this is not aimed as a conventional war against Pakistan.
Pakistan has rejected claims by India that it houses terrorist camps on its soil. It says the allegations are baseless and there's no evidence. What is your reaction to this, and what concrete proof do you have?
As a security analyst who's been studying this issue for almost 30 years, the first observation I'd make is that for all the professionals who are dealing with either terrorism as a phenomenon or South Asia, there is chapter and verse by academics, analysts, and retired diplomats about the way in which terror has been nurtured in Pakistan, and there has been a fair amount of documentation which has also been made available to the United Nations. For purposes of recall, in 2019, India was subjected to another terror attack. And at that time, India had provided necessary evidence at the United Nations Security Council. And all the member countries were agreed that Pakistan should desist, including China, which after a few days of being ambivalent, went along with the consensus. So India has a very simple message to convey to the world, which Prime Minister Modi has said repeatedly, that terrorism cannot be condoned. And today, when the Pahalgam attack took place, India has made the same message. And whenever India has tried to invite Pakistan to be part of the investigation, Pakistan did not come with the kind of sincerity and integrity that was expected. This happened to India in 2016. And there was yet another terror attack in a place called Puri. So based on all these experiences, I would say that professional consensus is that Pakistan, for its own domestic reasons, has invested in nurturing terror groups. And now the Pakistani army in particular is finding it very difficult to wean itself away from this kind of a proxy war that it is waging against India. And let me add in parentheses, against Afghanistan also. There is a lot of dismay in Afghanistan about a similar pattern. So I'm afraid Pakistan's stand or the way in which Pakistan is trying to project itself is not something that most of the global community would agree with.
What military action can we expect to see from India in the coming days?
From the Indian side, I would say that the message has been conveyed that if there is a terror strike of this nature, India will respond against the perpetrators and those who have supported it. India does not want to escalate. If there is any escalation, I would say that perhaps that choice will have to be made by Pakistan. Some very intemperate references have been made in Pakistan about the price they would make India pay. India is monitoring the situation. The security forces are prepared for exigencies. Personally, I would say I hope it doesn't happen. But if it does, there definitely would be a certain level of military escalation, as I see it, along the conventional ladder at this point in time.
In your view, where does the future of Kashmir lie if this conflict does continue to escalate?
You know, Kashmir's future is totally integrated with India. In 2019, a political decision was taken, and the status of Kashmir has been changed. It is now a union territory of India, fully integrated, and most recently, with normalcy having returned, which is to say that the fear of the gun had abated, terrorism had been brought under control. Tourism is the main industry and employment for the people of Kashmir, the citizens of Kashmir. And over the last year, the number of tourists who visited the region reached a record high. So this particular Pahalgam attack is something that has set the clock back for tourism. And the citizens of Kashmir are incensed. They're very angry. For the first time I have seen in 30 years, the citizens of Kashmir are united against terror. This was not always the case. So the future that I see is that terrorism has to be resisted. It has to be removed from within Kashmir, sent back across the border. And the Kashmiri citizens of India will find their own levels of confidence, competence, and I hope long-term peace.
World leaders are calling for calm amid rising tensions. What do you say to the likes of Donald Trump, who said he wants it to end quickly? Does India want to de-escalate?
As I said, India does not want to escalate. So the subtext is that India would like this to be closed as a chapter if the message is conveyed. Certain off-ramp options are possible. The concern of the global community has been conveyed in different ways. And I think if Pakistan could send its own signal that it would desist and stop providing the kind of support to terror camps and terror leaders as it has in the past, I think not just India, the whole world would be very relieved to know that a nuclear armed state like Pakistan is distancing itself from terrorism.
Commodore retired Chitrapu Uday Bhaskar. It was great to have you on the show, and your thoughts were much appreciated. Once again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.